starter. So that's why he slots in at number 4. There's still that belief. Maybe going into this year, they still try to stretch him out. It's his control that's probably going to move him into a relief role. But if he could start, he would probably be in the top 3, maybe even the conversation with Tiedemann and Harrison for number 1.
You see 3 of those names right now in Major League Baseball. We could see a lot of the top 10 right-handed pitchers getting called up to the big leagues this season. Who should we expect to get called up here, Sam?
Yeah, if you want to talk about somebody who might crack an opening day rotation, it's Grayson Rodriguez. Somebody for, again, the Baltimore Orioles, who probably would have started for the O's down the stretch last year when they could have really needed him in a playoff run, but had a lat strain that held him back for a few months. They were really cautious with him. They brought him back late. He was getting up to 5 innings at AAA Norfolk. But Grayson Rodriguez ended last year as our top right-handed pitching prospect and the top pitching prospect in the game. Deep set of pitches, deep arsenal for him, plus changeup, plus fastball. He's got a slider and a curveball to work too. But Andrew Painter is the guy we moved into the number 1 spot now, and that's something we talked to a lot of evaluators about. We got some really good feedback on Andrew Painter. My colleague Jonathan Mayo did an executive poll. He won as the top pitching prospect in baseball, so we wanted our list to reflect that. Andrew Painter, huge guy, 6'7", throws strikes, got better with his command as the year went on last year. Fastball, slider, he has a curveball, he has a changeup. Again, a deep arsenal. He's only going to get better from here. As you can see, he's 19 years old. He's going to be 20 coming up this year. He's already reached AA. The command was great at AA. It's a true ace potential for Andrew Painter. And maybe, considering he ended last year at AA, he could help the Phils again in the second half coming up this year as they try to get back to the World Series.
And quick thoughts, Sam, before we say goodbye. Hunter Brown, I mentioned only because the Astros have such good young pitching. You're telling me they got another guy in the top 10?
They do, yeah. I mean, we saw a little bit of Hunter Brown last year down the stretch and in the playoffs for the Astros. He's going to get a World Series ring for what they did. Again, he's kind of like the DL Hall of the right-handed list. He was in the bullpen for the Houston Astros just because their rotation was so deep. But if you look at his individual pitches, their starter quality, he could be a number 3 starter for anybody else. He could also be a dominant closer if they decide to keep him that way. But, I kind of thought, maybe Hunter Brown is a reliever just because that's what he's done. But the feedback we got is, no, he would be starting anywhere else, and he can be a legit major league starter, as if Houston needs more of those.
Yeah, exactly. Top 100 Prospects Show premiering right here on the network, January 26th, 7 Eastern on MLB Network. Sam Dykstra. Great stuff, Sam. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Grayson Rodriguez coming for the Orioles. A lot of buzz right now in terms of
a lot of buzz. Sometimes it's a little bit unfair when you have that much buzz. Look, when Adley Rutschman was getting called up, even going back to Matt Wieters with Baltimore, there was so much expectations on those guys. And sometimes it's a better situation to kind of fly a little bit under the radar. I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
Because all the potential's there. He was close to being called up last year and then got hurt. I think a lat or something like that when he was pitching. But there are a lot of expectations for him probably breaking with the club this year.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I actually did the recon, guys. That's a 4-man tent. There's room for you guys to get in there if you're interested.
I'm I'm not signing up for that camping trip.
Fair enough. To each their own.
Are you? You are a camping guy, though, right?
No.
Oh, you don't know anything about it? Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, fair enough.
I can hang outside. I can do some things outside.
Right.
But camping?
Bug spray.
When you're talking about like a shower, like, no.
No.
It's got to be a king. It's got to be good high water pressure. Everything. No, I'm not.
I thought you were. I mistook. I thought you'd be roughing it out there.
I can do a lot of things outside. I can hang outside.
You're a cabin guy, not a tent guy.
I'd be a hotel guy. It's not even cabin.
You're like glamping.
That's fine.
Milwaukee Brewers? Is that where we're going here?
Please, Keith, I'm going to try to get a segue from glamping.
Here,
listen, out in Wisconsin, you can find lots of great places to go outdoors. Speaking of being indoors, though, what do we got cooking here in
little
Milwaukee?
Daydreaming for the Brewers this season, things that they could be hoping for heading into spring. Let's start behind the plate. Everyone knows that there's been a shuffle of the catchers in the National League. Contreras to the National League Central, but we're not talking Wilson, we're talking William. These offensive numbers last year, now granted he was sharing time with d'Arnaud in Atlanta, but across the board, one of the best offensive catchers in the league. All of those numbers actually ranked first in the National League based on that 300 plate appearance minimum at the bottom. So a big offensive upgrade behind the plate in a hitter-friendly park with Contreras going to Milwaukee. Now, speaking of ballparks, how about Jesse Winker coming back to the National League Central? Rough year in Seattle, but look at his track record in these National League Central ballparks, guys. A lot of very friendly hitting environments, particularly where he's going to call home in Milwaukee. You see on the bottom there a .344 career average and an excellent on-base percentage and slugging percentage at American Family Field in about 30 games. Now, we talked about this next guy earlier in the show, Freddie Peralta. Some of the best stuff as we detailed earlier, but injuries the last 2 seasons, on the IL for 44% of the Brewers games dating back to August of 21. But when he's healthy, he's as nasty as anybody. And this last one, guys, might be more of a pipe dream at this point than a daydream. But Christian Yelich, if he can get back anywhere close, or at least split the difference between these 2 columns and get back closer to what he was in those first 2 years in Milwaukee, that obviously changes everything with the team. Might be a tall ask at this point given where he's at with his back and health-wise, but certainly on the table with a guy who's been as good as Yelich has at times in the past. So not a particularly strong division, guys. My Cardinals favored to be on top again. They snapped the Brewers' streak of 4 straight postseason appearances last year. They had 4 in the history of the franchise before that run began. So just a brief dip for Craig Counsell and co. How do we see the Brew Crew heading into this year?
Well, what's interesting is the Winker numbers, because sometimes when you see a guy who does well in a certain ballpark, you got to be careful because he's picking on that pitching staff. But Winker's doing that in Milwaukee against some dudes that can pitch because they were already on Keith's nasty list. So that's pretty impressive right there. And for whatever reason, maybe the American League didn't strike his fancy, but those NL Central numbers are kind of real. But that's interesting about that ballpark because he's picking on some pretty good pitchers while he's doing that.
That's a good point. Winker obviously gives that offense a jolt, and that's really what they need. You look at their starting pitchers, they're filthy. Devin Williams is a closer. You're well known how good he can be, even with the Hader trade. But it's weird, too. Just a thought of the Cardinals, Keith. It's crazy. I think it's the first time since 2000 you won't have a Pujols or a Molina in that lineup. A true changing the guard for St. Louis, although they're still penciled in 93 wins. It's soft division, like you said.
Yeah, very strange situation for the Cardinals. But, yeah, it's going to be the Brewers and the Cardinals battling it out at the top there. Maybe the Cubs get involved if they can surprise some people, but basically a 2-horse race, and they'll see if Milwaukee can't catch back up to the Cards.
I think Yelich still has like 6 years left on that contract. I mean, that is an eyesore how far he's dropped off.
I tell you, I don't quite understand because I put him kind of in that Bellinger category of I'm going so good, right? MVP good and not so good. And I don't quite get it or understand it because there are guys that are still performing year. And for whatever reason, they've kind of hit on some hard times.
Yeah, it's maddening right now for Yelich and company. All right, good stuff, Keith. Take a look there at the Brewers as they're spring daydreaming. When we come back here on Hot Stove, the moment you've all been waiting.
Well, so I figure what better way to butter you up than to do an entire trivia segment geared around your career.
Nobody disdains the spotlight more than Bill Ripley.
This one ain't it. But let's go. Let's have a good time with this. Come on.
Okay, it's all guys you've played with, former teammates, right?
All right.
All right, here's your first hint. Made his MLB debut with the 1983 Mariners the same year Harold debuted with the M's. One other one.
Oh, Mariner, Smoothie, Phil Bradley.
Wow.
Smoothie. Smoothie was one of my favorite teammates. Didn't talk a whole lot.
Yeah.
Didn't say a whole lot, but when he said something, it meant something.
It meant something.
It was baseball real. Smoothie, yes.
I could see you taking, a liking to somebody who doesn't talk a lot. Next one. Baltimore native and oldest member of the 1990 O's rotation opened the season as the number 4 starter.
Mike Flanagan.
1990.